What up? You have no idea about this. I'm just telling you from scratch. This is like the 8th time we've started today. But I wish I could show you that. It's been fun. This is David Mullins, Robin Black. I'm crazy about fighting, and so I analyze it. And he works with athletes and performers, sports psychology consultant. And David and I have been friends now for going on 3 years. I sought you out to ask some questions about mentality. You had worked with John Kavanagh and the team at SPG. Mm-hmm. And so I started asking you questions, and I found you to be a fun conversation and a good dude and smart. And so I've been asking you questions now for 3 years.
Yeah. It's you didn't know I was in Toronto at the time.
Yeah, that's weird. Like literally, I saw an article with, this guy, maybe I'll, and I think I hit him on Twitter or Tweeter or one of these, Instagoon or whatever. And, yeah, you live in Toronto, so it's crazy. So we get together for 3 years. For, I guess it's been 7 months now. I've been working, doing stuff with Mark for YouTube. You were the first guest I had in the home studio. It's been really fun. But fighting is, we've discussed this before. And this conversation you can have with Matt Serra or Carlos Condit or anybody who's fought, or Duke Roufus, or it's, people will say, it's 90% mental, but it's like 100% mental.
Yeah, it really is. Everything is, like, I've been thinking about this more and more when sometimes fighters that I work with don't perform on the night, or athletes don't perform on the day or whatever. And you can do all the prep, you can do all the training, you do all the diet work, you do everything in the build up. And then there is just that time to do it when it matters. That's the only time to do it. You only get one shot at it for that night, for that fight, for that event, whatever it is. There's only that time. So the idea of, that wasn't me at my best. It was, because it's what you did. And
that was your best.
That was your best. Whatever you did is your best, because there was only that time to do it. And so it doesn't matter if you could have done it better. It doesn't matter if it was bad. It was your best. Yeah. Because that's the harsh reality of everything. It's just this time to do it. It's live. There is no, we just restarted 8 times. You don't get to do that.
Right. Yeah. People didn't get to see those, but Stu's daughter Ivy was running around trying to smash her hat off. David was doing some painting. You may hear just a little bit of a kick drum getting through. That's happening downstairs. But yeah, we could start again. But when Big John or Herb or whoever says fight, now's when you fight.
Yeah. And all that work, that physical work, the diet, everything that goes in, the performance on the night, that is technical, it is physical, but it is mental as well. And so because it's mental, it's in everywhere. So it is 100% mental.
So is this. I got to pick this up. I used my hand to do that, but my brain did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My brain used my hand to do that. To me, the beauty, I've been talking about this a fair bit lately, about how much these moments, we don't have to, but we can cherish them, the moments where these guys fight, because literally a lifetime, like a human adult and kid, in, say, Lyoto Machida's case, he's 39 years old. He's been training the martial arts probably for 35 of those years.
Yeah.
And for 35 years, this man has dedicated everything he's learned and thought and how he's changed, and everything has all happened to shape this one moment in time where he fights this guy, Derek Brunson, who's built his world all a different way, but they only have this one. And there are times where it's easy as humans and I'm talking about us, our mentality of consuming this. It's easy sometimes for us to go, that was cool. What else is on? What's my phone doing or whatever? But these are
the shit card.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Kind of a lackluster card, not a lot of finishes. There's something very rare and unique and special, and something that could be cherished and relished. And because it's only this time. And my wife is in musical theater, and she saw me fight a few times, and she's seen me win 2 fights where I won them in the second round, and then she saw me lose one where I just shot the bed. And when people asked her about it after, she said, the failure, getting hurt. I watched him get punched in the face by a woman that I used to train with. She's a badass. Sandy Segura. She used to kick the shit out of me. And she'd be at the gym and see her beating the crap out of me. She's like, I don't care that he gets hurt, but that failure, that inability, because she's a performer, but she gets to go on again tomorrow night, and the next night, and the next night. Some of those shows run for a year and a half. There's only that one. And when you shit the bed, or it went okay, or you fucked something up, you zigged when you didn't, you should have zagged and you knew you should have, that's the one you have, and that's the one you have forever. That's the other thing that can really weigh on you. You'll be judged by this forever. Yeah, I mean, if you allow yourself to be defined by that. Those things will stay with you, those nights where you didn't perform, and so will the nights where you did. But like, I've been discussing this with fighters as well recently, because as I've been doing this now with working with fighters for 9 years, so I've had a crop of fighters that came through and have retired and are done, and I have another crop coming through, and that are getting to that point almost. And other ones that are literally starting on fight number 2. Yeah, but the people who are done now and are doing other stuff, some of them are in fighting still, as in coaching and that kind of stuff. Some of them are nothing to do with MMA, or are like other than just training and stuff. How you look back on the career is, and we can get into this with GSP a little bit, but how you look back on your career is crucial, because some guys won't have achieved what they wanted, so do they view the whole thing as a failure? They had goals set for themselves and they didn't achieve them, as in fighting the UFC or win a belt or whatever it might have been. Didn't happen. So was it a waste of time? Was it a fail? So how you view it, as in, if you view it on we talk about going into a fight, focus on the performance instead of the result. When you're looking back on your career, you don't want to just define whether it's how you look on it as a success or a failure based on whether you achieve certain things or not. There's so many experiences and so many moments and people, and these are and memories that you'll have. That's the way to look back on it, and that's crucial heading into retirement and heading into the transition into the next phase. So today we're going to go eat tacos and drink beer after this. So I don't know, I hope we have an hour and then an hour to do that. But we will talk about George St-Pierre coming back, and Mike Bisping at 40 or close to it. We wanted to talk about TJ Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt. That's an interesting fight from a psychological perspective. Yeah. And if we can, Diego Sanchez is fighting Matt Brown, and Eddie Alvarez is fighting Justin Gaethje. Yeah. Obviously, all four of them in those two fights have a lot in common. So we'll talk about that in a second. But what you just said, every experience is of value, always, forever, if you let it be, and if you learn something and you grow as a result. And I'm not giving away. I'm writing a one-man show I'm going to do in December for the first time in Winnipeg, and in it I'm examining some of the things that I've learned at different stages of my life. And one of the big takeaways is you set goals to go after them, and for the journey of what they bring you in search of something, not to achieve the goal. Yeah. And as I apologize, I have a personal perspective. I'm one person. I don't always want to bring it back to me, but as all of us do, often we look at it through our own lens. So I want to commentate the UFC. I am not currently doing that. Now, unlike 3 months ago where that really bothered me, now I see the incredible value of setting a particular goal so that my actions map in such a way that it moves towards it for what I've gained on the path. Whether I ever do or not, actually I've realized to me doesn't matter as much as finding a purpose to go towards something or move towards something, and all the lessons that you'll learn doing it. Yeah, and how you look back on it, as in the remembering self. You look back fondly on stuff you've got to do and different things. The experiencing self in the moment can look at things like, I don't have what I want yet, right. and this is just a stepping stone and all that kind of stuff. What you want to get to, if you know you're going to look back on it differently, you want to get to the point where you can experience it differently, where, like you said, the goals can be just that, a motivator, something to drive, but it's still the day-to-day
enjoyment and the and putting it in as best you can to, you know, that's what you're really there for. But you can't have that without those goals as well.
True, but I think once you've experienced that and you've past the point where you're like, oh, trying to be a UFC champion was a great goal or is a great goal, but I'm not tortured that I am not yet a UFC champion. This is obviously not me. I'm trying to think in terms of other people we know. Once you've seen that, I think you actually live your day-to-day parts of it better. I think the knowledge that it is just a thing that's there for these purposes, and I really want it. However, not having it still, not yet becoming the UFC champion, still will allow, or not getting it back yet in TJ Dillashaw's case. Just think of all the learning and growth and everything that happens on the way to attempt it.
Yeah, for sure, you know? For sure.
But we will talk about that fight, and I think that's the one you're probably most interested in many ways. But since this connects to George, why don't we start with a little George St-Pierre? Obviously, there's so much, and if we have an hour, we could just easily spend it just on George and just on an aspect of George. But there is the aspects of coming back, motivation, dealing with time, all of these things. But I want to tell you from my experience that I see George a little uncertain as to coming back. He has become a very logical-based person, and that's good, right? He looks at it and says, I'd like to do this. I'd feel that. This is this challenge. I accept it for this reason. These are the risks, and I choose to do it. He's a very analytical, logical person, but sometimes it's good to just have a little crazy passion and emotion, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like you don't want to be too much either side. You know, the extreme of either of those is not where you want to be. You want to be, you know, excited about things and passionate about it, and have that hunger and desire, and be doing it for the right reasons and going about it the right way. George has always been a fascinating one for me. I was watching him from a distance growing up. He was the guy. When I started with SBG in 2009, he was the guy that you'd look to as, you know, where you want to get to when you're a young fighter coming through, and that's, he kept coming up when I was talking to fighters about. I'd ask questions like, who you admire from a mental point of view, you know, fighters that you like respect and certain and like why they, what they have that you like.
You're not gonna believe this, Mark, but I did turn off the mic by accident. So if anybody noticed that I've been super quiet, hang with it. Go on.
Yeah. So George, his name kept coming up in that list when I was asking fighters of you know, who do you admire, and what they liked about him was the consistency of performance. You know, that was the, you know, he's going to show up and do his thing, and the level of professionalism and you know, the work he puts in and all that kind of stuff. That's the thing that people admired in him. It was interesting to me, like, so that was interesting, but for me, he was always fascinating because he was openly talking about his nerves and his doubts and his fear, where other fighters wouldn't do it, even though I know they're all feeling it.
Right.
He was open enough to be able to talk about it, or, you know, what it's just his personality or whatever it is, that he was open about it and talking about the work he had done on that side of things. And
so it could be his personality, but I think that honesty, like self-honesty or self-awareness, was something that developed in him after his first loss.
Yeah.
Very much. And it's something that gets nurtured. The stronger you get at it, probably the stronger you can get at it. But when you talk to George, he's incredibly self-aware and he's incredibly honest with himself. But I don't think he's always been that way. I think he would tell you that he hasn't always been that way. But when he lost, he had something, if you have watched any of these or listened to any of these before, we've talked about before, go back and find what you did or didn't do and what you can improve or change. He very quickly, after the Matt Serra fight, went back and identified all of the failures that he did, which were all of the things he's now strong at. Preparation, taking things seriously, being properly analytical about the challenge, all of those things.
Yeah, he learned from the Matt Hughes fight. He learned bigger from the Matt Serra fight, like you said. I know he started working with the sports psych after the Matt Serra loss.
Yes.
And
he also went back to the Matt Hughes one and was brutally honest, actually, in retrospect. I admired him too much and all that. That's weird when you think about it. That was before the sports psych. That honesty was there before that.
Yeah, for sure. And it was you know, it was interesting to see that kind of people talking about that stuff. And after the Matt Serra fight, he did change a lot in terms of, you know, really game planning everyone and not taking anyone lightly, or, you know, not focusing on the wrong stuff or whatever. You know, and some people say to a detriment, where it became, you know, just shut down kind of style or whatever. But I've always admired him. And I thought he was. It's not like I'm not making any great claims. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. Obviously, I admire him.
That doesn't require much expertise.
Yeah, no. But what's fascinating now is he's back, and it's such a long break. It'll be 4 years. It was November 2013.
Yeah. And this is November
when he fought Hendricks.
2017.
Yeah. So it'll be 4 years, and that's a long break. You know, there's some examples out there of guys coming back after long breaks.
Lawler had quite a break. I don't know how long, couple of years.
Yeah, not 4
years.
In the MMA world, like, I don't know if I know of anyone that's taken that long away. In boxing, obviously.
Closest one I think was Randy.
Yeah. Randy took a while. Lyoto now will be 2 years forced because of suspension.
Yeah, there's been suspension, guys, but 4 years away voluntarily. Like, it's not an injury thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a suspension thing. It's just I'm going away and then coming back. There's been examples in boxing where guys come back really late, like George Foreman and and things like that. But it's fascinating. What I would want to know is the why, the real why of why to come back now.
Well, if you're in Canada in particular, I know it's being discussed to be on Fight Pass, but on November 1st, the 30-minute doc that we did at TSN on him is coming out. Mm-hmm. I asked him that question on camera, off camera, in the gym, sitting down, all of them, in all these different situations, and I didn't get the feeling he was ever telling me really the truth. It was, I missed it. I love competition and so forth, but I don't know if he knows. I really don't know if he knows, and that's scary.
Yeah. It's that's the fascinating part here. Like, you'd want it to be for the reasons of just he did miss it, but they all miss it.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't need the money, so we can eliminate that, and that's true. And I know that not just from talking to him, but by knowing his management team very well. And
that's a good thing, because coming back for the money is a terrible reason to come back. It's a terrible, terrible reason to come back. So that's a good thing.
That's eliminated.
Yeah, so that's good. But some of it can be just that fire is still there, which is, like we said, that's going to be there anyways. Some of it can be feelings of missing the limelight, missing the show, missing the...
I don't even think it's that, because he doesn't like any of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's why him in this instance is such an interesting case. So then it's the competition side or the challenge side maybe that's been missing.
That's what he says, and I think there's some anchored truth in that. I think because again, he's very honest to himself. He's not honest to the camera, and he's not honest to the audience watching, and he's not honest to his opponent, but he's honest to himself. And it's an interesting one. So he definitely, I think it is rooted in the missing the competition. He's a martial artist, but the truth is he also kind of hates it, and that's normal too. I should think he's really terrified of fighting. Yeah,
I mean, it was always interesting because like everyone has doubts and the nerves and stuff, but they're usually they have those, but they love the actual, the fight and the challenge. He was very different in that sense, where he talked about not enjoying that side and preferring the training side more so, and all that. So,
but a lot of guys like that.
I do. I know guys.
I'm one.
Yeah.
And I know many, and I've seen many, and where. Yeah. I mean, I've been told by fighters that fight in the UFC that fighting is the thing they have to do to lead the martial arts training lifestyle that they love.
Yeah, and that's really tough. I mean, I do know of cases like that, but to me, it's much better when you truly love to compete.
Yeah.
Because
what is that really? I mean, even the people who truly love to compete are scared and worried and anxious.
But they're scared and worried and anxious of different things.
Right.
They're scared and worried of anxious of being embarrassed or failure. They're not scared and worried of anxious of being hurt or that kind of that kind of thing. That's where it can be a little different.
Yes, but I do think that many of the ones, and I'm not going to say a friend's name that is a high level fighter that is coming to mind as I sat on a mat chatting with him about this off camera. But those are the things he's afraid of too. Mm-hmm. Like when he loves training, he loves sparring, he loves kicking people and getting hit, but it is the anxiety of failure or embarrassment that even the guys who say, in my belief, fighting is the thing I have to do to be able to do this thing I love, which is training and growing as a martial artist. Their fear, I think, is fear of failure. Like, I don't think there's anybody who spars with the high-level people, headgear or no headgear, that's then suddenly only afraid of fighting on the night. I think it's failing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a different thing. And that's that thing we were talking about where you're putting yourself out there in that moment. It's now.
Yeah.
But for George to come back, I was surprised.
Me too.
I'll be honest. I was surprised that he's back. Because it had been talked about every year since he's been gone, and nothing happened, and I really didn't think he was going to come back. So I'm actually shocked that it's happening. I'd love to know the why. Even if he doesn't know it, I'd love to know it. There can be a mix of whys. But if it's that thing as well where he can still do it now physically, he can still do it. And in a few years he won't be able to. Him. Yeah, he's in tremendous shape.
You should see.
Yeah, tremendous shape. In years from now, whatever age that is, that it's not an option anymore.
Right.
You'll get to the point where it doesn't matter how much you want to, you can't come back. Even Bellator won't have certain guys at a certain stage.
Even Bellator. I know what you mean.
It'll get to that point though, where you can't do it physically anymore, and they won't even have you.
Yeah, like how old's Ken Shamrock now? 50? Yeah, will we take a 60-year-old Ken Shamrock? Someone will take a 70-year-old because it'll get so weird that they will run that. No offense to Ken Shamrock, I love the guy. He's like, those legends are so awesome. But
you get my point.
Yes,
like physically, he'll get to the point where we can't do it anymore. Yeah. He's not there now, so it can be that regret of what, am I going to regret not coming back? Mm-hmm. So again, it's kind of a negative reason to come back is the worry of like regretting it later.
So I'll give you more insight into what he told me, and then you see if we assume it's at face value, and in some of this I do believe is, but you never really know. He said the biggest thing that he loves is the memories. He loves to have and collect these memories of these great moments.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
Yeah, and that seems true. Mm-hmm. And this one he'd like to have the memory of having. It's weird though. It's like to get that you have to do this terrifying thing.
And the great memories are going to be in the gym, a lot of them. The prep.
Right.
They're going to be great memories. And like we're talking about the goal to drive you to get the day to day. Without a fight at the end of it, the training's not the same. Mm-hmm. Training for the sake of training is fun. But it's not the same as training for a build-up for a competition, as in a fight at the end of it. It's not the same.
Not at all.
The bonds with your sparring partners are great, or the
meaning. The meaning in every single moment is different.
Yeah. So those memories, he would have felt it being different, and even though he's kept training and stuff like that, it wouldn't have been the same. So that to me is a valid. Like that's what I understood him to mean when he said about the memories. People would assume it's the memory of the actual fight night and the getting your hand raised and getting the belt around your waist and all that stuff. I think it's more than that. I think it's the day-to-day memories are different and the experiences are different.
I think you're absolutely right, and it makes a lot more sense now. And he loves to get better.
Yeah.
He loves living a life of constant self-improvement. And there's more self-improvement to be gained when you have a purpose to do it.
Right.
We could talk about this forever. But I know that I'm curious to hear, because you brought it up, and there's fucking 50 brilliant fights all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't given that much thought to the psychological dynamic of Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw till you brought it up. So tell me your thoughts.
Well, I mean, for guys to have been teammates for that long and now be, well, like rivals or competitors or whatever, is, you know, it is fascinating. We've seen it before with, I suppose, Rashad and John Jones, and there's other cases of that kind of stuff as well. But to have sparred that much and to have worked together that much and to know as much about each other as they do, and all the circumstances around TJ leaving the team and Uriah being in the middle of the whole thing, and, you know, there's so much drama there, there's so much of a story around it. Both guys better in the build-up be mentally preparing for how they're seeing that story, how they're viewing that whole thing, to get to the point where they have accepted it and are able to be free of it come fight night. You don't want to go in there to, as much as it sounds like, you know, how sweet would it be for TJ to get one over on the team? How sweet would it be for Cody to beat TJ, the guy who left the team?
That's we the observers are.
Yeah, and that's the narrative we'll be given. That's the story that and that's how you sell that fight. But both guys have to be able to separate because they definitely should be pushing that angle. Yeah. To sell the fight, you know, and to hype it and stuff like that. And it's stupid, but that's part of this business, and they have to do that. And it makes sense to do that.
Commerce. We would love to test ourselves in competition with some people watching, but for it to exist, it needs to make money, and there's a company and all this. People need to buy it, etc.
So they better be pushing that story, but they also better be understanding that the performance is separate from that stuff. So Cody's not fighting the TJ who left the team and the guy who backstabbed Uriah and the guy who used to be in the gym and he didn't get on with him, blah blah, all this kind of stuff. He has to just be fighting the skill set that is and the body type that is TJ, and vice versa. So
that for sure, and that is true no matter what the narrative and the story and whatever. I'm fighting a body type and a skill set, but beyond that too, the truth of that. So I think there's another element when we're doing that, and that carries to us and our coaches and stuff. If we believe we know too much about that guy,
yes, I was going to get to that.
We're wrong maybe, because if you and I are brothers, like twin brothers, and we are 16 years old, and we're both very, very good at barbecue, and we make a mean-ass barbecue, and you move to Cleveland, and I move to Los Angeles, and for the next 6 years, we're going to pick up different spices, we're going to change the way we cook, we're going to select different, everything's going to change. We'll be rooted in the same things, but our spices and our flavors will have changed dramatically, and we may even go in opposite directions. Yours gets sweeter, mine gets hotter, you know? So that is happening with these guys 100%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can, like, the sparring that they had, it feels like it's really important to, you know, for them, for each other in the build up to this, and they'll know what really happened and who got the better of certain positions or who got the better on certain days and all that stuff. But the evolution since then for both guys is huge, and yes, for sure they have to account for that in their prep. You know, you do watch film, you do game plan, but you do also have to kind of anticipate the unknowns and the extra stuff that they'll have worked on. Because if
and don't believe you know anything with any certainty. Do not go in with, oh, when he throws a left kick, I do that. Fuck that.
You're just ripe for traps then. So that's you know, that's true again of any fight, but it's especially true when you've worked together for so many years like this, like those guys have. So that's going to be interesting to see, is who can handle the occasion the best and who can separate the you know, the kind of the tension that'll be there around this one, and the you know, Cody can't be doing it for Uriah. And TJ can't be doing it for Dwayne and all that kind of stuff as well. That you have to let go of that stuff. You have to let go of that stuff.
Is there
they both had performances like that, like TJ against Barao.
Yeah,
just a masterful performance. Like the first one especially jumps to mind.
Yeah, that is
masterful performance, and how he handled the storyline that was there of that was Nova and at the top still, and that was Team Alpha Male failing again and again and again against those guys, whether it's Aldo or Barao, again and again failing, but he kind of was able to handle all of that stuff and go out there and just handle, like, you know, one of the all-time great performances.
Unreal.
And then Cody against Dominic did, you know, one of the all-time great performances as well, like. And all that was, you know, all that was around Dominic and the legend that he is. So forth. Yeah, and the history there.
So this is something that I'm curious about to get your take on. Garbrandt seems, even when I've spoken to him in person, and certainly what you see on TV, we know that's not all rooted in truth. But he seems quite emotional.
Yeah.
He's young.
Yeah.
Youth.
TJ
can
too.
Be part of that. TJ too.
Yeah.
But he used that emotion really well against Dominic. How and why can that be a good thing for him sometimes? How do we make that a good thing for him? Because you know it can be bad.
If you he is a naturally emotional guy.
Yes.
So to try and squash that emotion is to try and get him to be something he's not. And that's not good. That's not what you want. You want to channel it in the right places is what you want to get. So what he had in that Dominic fight is fun. Yeah. It looked like he had a lot of fun in there.
Yeah, he did.
You know, he was free and he was able to express
and
himself.
kind of fun, like pointing at him and taunting and stuff, which dancing. Yeah.
It was crazy to watch because it's Dominic fucking Cruz.
Yeah, I know. And it never happened. There was no.
Yeah.
And there hadn't been.
I did not see that coming.
No, me neither. And you know, some people might have said that based on the fact that they saw him knock out a bunch of people. But to win 4 rounds like that,
and it was special.
I was talking about that on a Facebook Live that I was doing about Cowboy and Darren Till, and it's like, you know, somebody said Cowboy fought Miles Jury and he fought Cowboy Oliveira and he fought these guys who were kind of buzz things at the time. Why would this be any different? And I used, we can grab any 10 of those, the young up-and-comer with no chance. And out of 10, there could be 1 or 2 Garbrandts where you're like, yeah, sometimes it's real.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's real. And you don't know which one it is. If Darren Till, and by the time you're watching this, you'd be like, Robin Black, like Cowboy kicked the shit out of him. Or you'd be like, holy shit. Like, because nobody's expecting that guy to win, but he of course can win.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're watching this and he did win, or you're watching this and he didn't, the outcome is not the point. The point is that if you get 10 Darren Tills, one of them turns out like that. And if you could jump ahead 4 years in the future, and Darren Till had beaten 8 guys, and Cowboy was the first one, the number 7 wouldn't be so shocking.
Yeah.
It's the first one that shocks you all the time.
Yeah.
And because the first one can't truly be predicted with any real honesty. Most predictions you can't anyways. But and Garbrandt is that exception or that example. It's like he knocked out a bunch of guys in the first round. Okay, great. Holy shit, he did that to Dominic Cruz.
But every great had to do that.
That's right.
You know, every great had to.
Yeah. Whether it was their very first fight where you knew nothing about them and they blew your mind, or their 12th fight where they were pretty good and then one day they were brilliant.
Yeah. Like, you look back now, and of course John Jones going to beat Shogun. I mean, that's stupid, but we didn't know at the time.
Right.
And there's all these examples. Every great had to be crossover at some point from a prospect to a legit top guy.
And many don't.
Yes.
And so since more don't than do, we have
it's easy to write them off.
The
stats are in your favor. You're not taking much of a risk when you say no. He's not ready. He's not good enough. Obviously, like you're going to turn out right more than you're not. But this is the thing. Each guy is his own thing. You can't lump them all in together. And I didn't see it with Cody because there wasn't enough data to see. But when you see that Dominic Cruz performance, it's one of the greatest of all time.
But now he's only done that once.
Yes.
He's knocked out a bunch of guys, and that's a skill, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he only did that the one time. You need to do it again and again and again, or else people, and we've seen this too. We have one brilliant night. Things change in your life and your body and something, or the game changes, or you look at something different. And then years later, people forget you except for that one night where you did something brilliant.
Yeah, and part of it is for something like that, on the way up, you have something to prove, and you have a goal that you have, and we've talked about this a lot, but you have a goal that you have, you want to be the champ, and you want to, part of it would have been to beat Dominic and all that kind of stuff. Now, this is where that rivalry thing can be useful, because that, it's a real next obvious, you have to be up for this, you have to be motivated for this fight. It's a real serious challenge. So the goal of getting the belt is easier to have that goal than to keep the belt. We touched on that before. But that keeping the belt thing gets so much easier when it's TJ across from you. So that's where the rivalry is a benefit, motivationally, and driving you and not allowing you to, rest a little bit because you're at the top now. So that it helps there, and for sure allow that to be there. But then come fight night, you have to be able to free yourself, like he did against Dominic. Just freely express himself, like TJ did against Barao. Just freely express themselves, embrace the pressure of the occasion. One of them is going to do that better than the other on fight night. I can't call that fight.
Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit, or Robbie Lawler and Roy McDonald. There are the nights where they're both doing it at their best. Those are so fucking amazing. Yeah. Although the ones where somebody just has a night of genius, like TJ and Barao or Cody, and that's beautiful too. But when you get the two where both are there right to that point, that's when you see something that you've never seen before. And that we could get that. We could definitely get that. There's a very real chance of that. Man, can you imagine how anxious Dwayne and Uriah are on the night? Dwayne's got to be in the corner. I don't know if Uriah is. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure.
He doesn't tend to be.
Doesn't tend to be.
Yeah.
But sitting over there. Yeah, Buckles.
Yeah, Buckles is the main guy. Yeah.
He's smart. He's very smart.
Yeah.
And he takes his things seriously too. He wants to be the best coach. I chatted with him a fair bit in Buffalo, I think, and you see it. The coach is demanded of you to keep growing and growing and growing too, and now you have the ability to focus in on what they're not, but it's a big responsibility. But Uriah's sitting down, he can't do anything except yell, fucking get him.
Yeah.
Kick him.
I've talked about this with a coach recently, because there is that thing where the coach can, their whole,
influence.
Well, no, they're how they see themselves. If they're allowing that to be on the results of their fighters, it's tough. It's a tough thing, because you can prepare them as best you can, and the prep goes really well, and you put all the work and you do the right stuff. It's still up to them to go and do it on the night. That's I was kind of getting at. That's why the fighter makes the money.
Right.
That's why he makes the biggest. Like the coach gets a cut of it.
Or 85 or 80% of it.
The coach gets a cut. That's it. But he doesn't get the lot, because it is the fighter that's doing it. So the coach's job is to prepare them. So Uriah and Dwayne have to trust their preparation, but what more can they do? This is Cody and TJ's fight, so it's up to them to go and do it. And like I said, it's a big part of it for Cody and TJ is not to be doing it for Uriah or Dwayne. That's huge in this one, I think.
Yeah, big time. I want to move on to the crazy fights, and in quotes, air quotes, the crazy fights, which is exactly what I think we're going to touch on, what that actually means, to whom. But I do want to tell you that I sat down, I think it's on one of those hangs I did in Dallas. Me and Mark were down in Dallas, and chatted with Duke. And Duke Rufus, of course, Pettis' coach, and many other great fighters. And Duke might not have been on camera, but I think it was. He talked about how he has a happier life and is better at his job by being less emotionally connected to the outcome or how they do. And he said that was an incredible amount of work, because it is your natural tendency. These are your sons or your brother. Kavanaugh, thinks of Connor as his kid brother, and Duke looks at, how could you not look at Sergio Pettis as your son?
Sergio, they've been with him for
exactly.
Yeah.
But he said that it took work to create a scenario in which he was less emotionally connected, particularly to the outcome. And as a result, he's a better father or coach or whatever, or person, husband, human, because of that. And because he's a better human, he'll sleep better, he'll coach better.
Yeah.
And it seems counterproductive, but to somehow, because it is, and I would compare it to parenting. I'm not a parent yet, but there are those parents that are tough parents. And that one must be so hard sometimes if you want them to love you. You want your kid to just think you're the greatest, but instead you have to be tough.
Yeah.
That's a sacrifice. Like, that's work that has to be made in hopes of making their life better. It's the same thing. It's natural for a coach to be emotionally, and he's hurt, we're hurt. We win together, we lose together, we cry together. And some of the best coaches, Sean Tompkins was very much like that. But to do the hard work, to try to make that slightly less connected, to give better work to them, it's hard work, I can imagine.
It's for sure. It's if you're already on what you're on is a roller coaster. If that's the way, if you're judging how you define yourself and how you're going and how your day is and how your life is based on the result of the fighters on fight night as a coach, you're just on a roller coaster then, because results are going to go how they go, and you're not going to win them all. There's going to be tough losses. Guaranteed, if you're at the top level, if you have enough good guys, you're going to have good wins, and you're going to get high from those. You're going to have hard, tough losses, and you're going to get very low from those. And you're just on a roller coaster. You can't live like that.
No,
you know,
not for any like the time.
You can live like that. Guys live like that all the time, but you're not getting the best out of yourself. You're not being fair to yourself if you do that. If you can do what Duke has done, and he's talked about separating a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, it's not that you don't care. It's not that you don't care as much. You care so much that you're willing to do this.
Yeah.
You know, you care so much that you're willing to put the little bit of work in to separate and view it a little differently. So you're much more even keel. You're much more steady. And you're going to be, like you said, you're going to be a better coach then to those guys and give them better, so that they can do better. But it's still up to them to go and do it.
Of course.
And that's why they get paid more. Because it's up to them. It's on the night.
I think, and I love Duke. Whenever I get a chance to talk to him, I always learn a lot. But I think somebody would hear that and think that somehow that's easier to try to make that. It's emotional labor.
Yeah.
Hard emotional labor to put yourself into the ability to take something that your whole life you've been emotionally connected and defined yourself this way, and you do the hard work to make it better for them by just, that's fucking complex. But
any kind of retraining of something like that is hard to do. You know,
that's well put. Yeah,
it's really hard to do. So it takes a lot of awareness to know you. It's worth doing and you should be doing it, and then it takes an extra level to do it. But yeah, it definitely, a coach's job is tough. So if you can get to that point where, like we said, you care enough to be able to separate a little bit and view the results as, like I think John has said it, and loads of people have said this, but it's just two sides of the same coin, winning and losing.
Right.
That's all it is when you get down to it. All you can do as a coach is put your best in so that they're best prepared as possible, and then it'll be what it'll be.
John is, I can tell, I don't know if he's ever talked about this, although I picked it up on tweets. He seems to be like not an atheist type of the universe is the way that it is, and fuck, that's how it is. You know what I mean? But I'll ask him next time I see him about some of these kinds of things, about how and why he sees the world that way. But he's a fascinating guy. You know John extremely well. Do you guys talk still weekly?
Yeah. Not weekly, but we like the Atlantic Ocean is between us, so you don't talk as much, but we still talk, for sure.
When I sat down with him in Las Vegas, and he was like, "Oh yeah, so you see David a lot?" I said, "We talk about every week." Like he was jealous. Fuck you, John. I'm hoping to go to Ireland in March, but that's
March on purpose for Patrick's Day as well.
I didn't plan it on St. Patrick's Day, but March or April, I'm hoping to
March
do my show there.
Yeah.
So let's chat about this a little bit.
The crazy fights.
Yes. Yeah. And then let's go get a taco. So Matt Brown is going to fight Diego Sanchez, and Eddie Alvarez is going to fight Justin Gaethje, and they're going to be insane bloodbaths of insanity.
That's why they've been made. That's why those fights have been made. The only reason you put Matt Brown and Diego Sanchez together is because of what Matt Brown is and what Diego Sanchez is and what you hope that fight will be.
Matt Brown, I believe, said it was his last fight.
It's his last fight, yeah.
So there's a lot here.
Yeah.
But first thing I want to ask you. Matt Brown, there's elements to him where he's a sensation seeker.
Mm-hmm.
He'd probably want to go out and have the final experience. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to tell Matt Brown, take this guy down, be different, go out and try it a different way this one time. But it's his last fight. He's got to probably be Matt Brown.
Yeah, I think he's delighted that it's Diego.
Yeah.
I think he hopes that Diego brings the best Diego possible and they just go to war. I think that's
One more
what
time.
he hopes.
Yeah.
I think that's what Diego hopes as well.
And they're probably going to get that.
And that's what, obviously, that's what Sean Shelby hopes. That's what Dana White hopes. But that's what the fans hope for and all that kind of stuff. But that's what makes this different. I think that's what both of these guys really want as well. Mm-hmm. You watch fights like that over the years where there's two guys like that together, and you're like, this could be that thing. Like Gaethje and Ward, you knew going in it could be that thing, and it turned out to be way bigger than you could have hoped it was going to be. But there was that prospect. That's why people were excited about it going in. And there's been fights like that, like Gilbert and Diego, and fights like that where both guys are, they're fighters. They've got that warrior kind of mindset, and
it's the only one they have to some degree.
So there is that thing. Like, that's why what makes this interesting is there is the game plan side, and it, Matt could go about this in such a way to make it, an easier fight for himself.
Or if anybody surprised the other one, that would be their benefit.
Yeah. If they didn't play the crazy game. Yeah. Like, Diego could go about a certain way to.
Diego's a fantastic grappler.
Yeah,
fantastic.
He is.
Grappler.
He out-grappled Nick Diaz pretty much in their fight.
And has grown since then.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. Yeah. He out-grappled Merson Held, which is not easy to do.
Ooh, that's legit.
Yeah. So, yeah, Diego's a tremendous grappler and could go about that route. Matt could go on it.
Yeah.
But it's that thing. What are they going to do? Are they just going to fuck it and just go for it?
Probably.
And just meet in the middle? Because that's what everyone expects them to do. That's what they know. That's why the fight's been made.
Yeah.
So
they know they can draw on their own truthful experience that they're very capable in those situations, and they're up for it, and they're man for it, and they're unique in that way.
Yeah.
And especially when they're with someone else like them,
Yeah. So that's to me that's really fascinating. That's what that's why Joe Lozon and Diego Sanchez were put together. It didn't turn out to be that kind of a fight at all, but there's that thing. So it's interesting. To me, the psychology of the fighter going in is, sometimes even the coach will be game planning a certain way to go about it to get the best performance, to get the result. But the fighter's like, in the back of their head, like, yeah, that sounds good, but fuck it, I'm just gonna draw a line here, and we're just gonna go to war, fight in the phone booth. Yeah. And Justin Gaethje and Eddie Alvarez is a similar kind of a deal, even more so with Gaethje, because he doesn't do anything else, I don't think. You know what I mean?
Never has so far.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he can't one day. But did we ever talk about this? The idea of anti-fragility?
Yes.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
That the opposite of robustness, the opposite of fragile is not robustness or not. It is to become even stronger from tension or stress.
Yeah, and that's what Justin Gaethje might be Mr. Anti-Fragility.
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
These situations he doesn't just survive them.
Yeah.
They make him stronger.
Yeah.
Having had so many of them. Do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like in the worst part of the Michael Johnson fight, he knew it's going to be over soon, and I'm going to take over. He knew it.
Yeah.
Now someday that's not going to be true.
No. And he knows that too.
But in the middle of it, he will know this is I keep coming. I stay here, and I will break you. And by part of him breaking you is him not breaking.
Exactly.
And then he takes over.
And he cannot break way longer. In fact, in his experience, he cannot break and make you break first 100% of the time.
Yeah.
That's what his experience is.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I have said for many years that when he loses, and I believe this is true of Tony Ferguson as well, they will lose spectacularly. Mm-hmm. now he says that too. When he came to the UFC, he said, one thing I can tell you is one day I'm going to lose fucking spectacularly.
Yeah, but he's accepted that, which
Exactly.
makes it easier to get to get in there and not break then.
Exactly. That is my point exactly. It's like, all right, that's true. So what?
Yeah.
Like that, not today, not right now, maybe one day. Fuck, it could be today.
Yeah, but
that has no bearing on what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Sean Tompkins. So Chris Hordesky cornered me, and Mark Komick trained with him for a long time at Extreme Couture in Toronto, and Sean Tompkins became a friend, and I learned a lot from him. And Chris, at like 18, told me, or 19 maybe, we were in Montreal commentating something together, and he told me that Sean had him come to grips with the reality very young. What's the worst thing that can happen? I get kicked in the head and knocked out. Yeah? What would that be like? And kind of and then move on from it.
Yeah.
You know, as a young man, he came to grips with that. And I've heard Nate Diaz talk about it as well. Mm-hmm. You know, to really truly accept that the worst thing that could happen and then fucking move on.
Yeah. I've seen the other side of it where I've known undefeated fighters coming up, and they're now trying not to lose. Right. They're not even worried about winning the fight. They just want to protect their record and stuff like that. So that's the opposite of what Justin Gaethje is, in a way, where he's just accepted the worst case scenario as an inevitable thing that will happen to him. But so what? I'm going to go out there and not be broken in this one. And Eddie, we've seen in some of the most
greatest,
incredible fights and incredible performances and just great and hard. Like it was the Dustin Poirier fight, his last fight. I was watching that with a bunch of people who only knew Eddie as the guy who fought Conor, which is
right.
You know, that is what it is. But
Eddie Alvarez, if anybody is thinking doesn't know that, is, I don't know, you wouldn't be watching two guys sit around
but there are new fans that have come to the sport because of Conor.
But this is one of the greatest fighters of all time, and I know I say that, people are like, yeah, right. It's like you just go back and watch any 15 of his fights before the UFC.
Incredible fights. So I'm watching the Poirier fight with this group, and they're like, Dustin it looks like he's about to finish him. Like, but this is Eddie Alvarez, you know, to the people with me, because they're like, oh, here we go again, kind of.
Yeah,
like,
right.
No, this is Eddie Alvarez. This is Eddie. He's not done yet. If he's not done yet, then he's not done
yet. Not done at all. Yeah.
And then he starts to come back, and he starts to he gets to the point of nearly finishing Dustin, and then the knee and all that stuff happens, and it's such a shame.
Yeah.
But Eddie got to that point where he started to take over, and it started to become an Eddie Alvarez kind of a fight, and that's what he brings as well. That's to me, that's it's an incredible fight, and it's that thing of, the reason it was made is because it's a crazy fight, and they both have that thing, and you're hoping it's going to be Alvarez Chandler. You're hoping it's going to be
Gaethje. Anybody has been like that 100% of the time.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that it won't one day be different, but for him fighting in any other character, there's no reason to think that would serve him better.
No, I
can't imagine it would. I mean, he knows how to wrestle, that's fucking for sure. But he can fight with the same kind of ferocity and shoot the odd takedown and get on top for a bit and be ferocious there. But yeah, it's a pretty brilliant fight. Eddie, we have seen, he got to the title by, wrestle fucking Pettis and
he knocked out
and Gill. And Gill.
Yeah.
He's
was
capable of
much more tactical in those fights. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
had a game plan and kind of stuck to it.
I was happy to see him. Some people didn't enjoy it, which is weird. It's not only chaos is not the only amazing way to fight, but I was happy for him. And then he went there, and at that time, the old dog came out, or whatever he refers to it. Dog, you bring out the dog. I don't know, but it's pretty spectacular. I'm gonna have to do. When is that fight? It's in December?
December, I think, yeah.
We're going to have to try to do a Sap Alvarez kind of breakdown for that, Mark. I don't know how we're going to do it exactly yet. Maybe a whiteboard. Might be able to do something on a whiteboard. I don't know. We'll think about it. Pretty spectacular fight. But they could be different. That's
what I mean, yeah. It's that mental thing, that psychology and the build-up for the like you said, it's maybe more so for Eddie than it is for Justin to try and not just stand here and just go to war, and maybe look to be a little bit more technical and tactical in the approach.
I don't see him as a liar, or I don't see him as a very good actor either. I don't think, when I think of Eddie, I think of a lot of brilliant things, a lot of things I admire, but his acting skills are not one of them. And he has come out and been talking about not giving a fuck kind of thing with the outcome and being free to fight. And it feels authentic to me. Like, it doesn't feel like he's using misdirection. Again, I don't think of him as that great of an actor. But I think that probably, I mean, somebody can break Justin Gaethje. He's still a human being. And that someone can be Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, for sure. For sure he can. If anyone can, it can be him. It's a hell of a fight.
Yeah.
And that's why it was made.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, the fighters have to deal with that expectation going in.
These are four guys pretty good at that.
Yeah. But that's what makes the matchups a little bit, you know, the expectation makes the matchup a little different. And because sometimes you get a matchup like that you expect to be fireworks, and it's not, because the other guy went a different route. And then you're wondering, I'm wondering anyways, what they think of that themselves afterwards. That fighter who is, you know, a Gaethje and Alvarez type, or a Matt Brown type, do they look back and like, yeah, I got the win. Yeah, it was a good win, but I had to be a little different than I wanted to be.
To Carlos Condit a number of times. I spent a day with him training with Erwan Lacour, MoveNat. Erwan's he's brilliant. And I've interviewed Condit a few times. I've analyzed him a ton, and I've watched other people interview him. And he's still, when he talks about it, he says, I still get shit for that Nick Diaz fight. It's one of the most exciting fighters ever, Carlos Condit. Yeah. But you can see he takes pride in it. He sees it correctly. He had to supersede his own instincts to win the interim belt and fight George St-Pierre by creating a scenario that was tough for him to do. Yeah. And he did it. Yeah. And he sees that.
And he should admire that.
He does.
And
he takes pride in it.
And he should. And that's what I mean. That
he admits that he gets a lot of shit for it still, but he's proud of it, as he should be.
Yeah. But the people giving him shit, who gives a fuck about those people? That's the way he should look at it. And I think that's the way he does look at it.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you'd want the guy who goes about it a more tactical, technical way to be proud of the performance that he put in. So what if it didn't live up to the expectations of the fans and the promoter and all that kind of stuff?
I think one of the greatest moments of Chuck Liddell's career is the blast double he does on Vanderlei Silva late in round 3. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, that was so not
that
Chuck.
Coming, like,
I know. But when you save that your whole life, he said, one day I'm going to pull this thing out. It's like BJ Penn and the head kick on Diego. BJ never threw a kick in his entire lifetime until that day. And gashed Diego wide open. Next week there's a lot of stuff, and then I'm going to New York and I'm going to China. So we might not be able to hang out till late November, but you want to hang out again?
Yeah, we'll get one, and there's a couple of great fights towards the end of the year. So, do
you think they'll announce a Conor fight at the end of December? It's possible.
It's possible. I don't know. I really don't know.
No.
But I think
if you ask John, would he tell you or no? Not that you'd tell us, but would he tell you or no?
He probably would, yeah. But I definitely wouldn't tell anyone. That's why he would tell me.
Right.
That's why he tells me stuff like that.
Because you never tell.
I never tell.
You want to get some tacos?
Yes.
It's been fun. If you saw a cut earlier or you didn't hear my voice, well, that was my fault. But thank you guys. It's a pleasure. Thanks, man. Let's get tacos.
Cool.
Later.